wonderful to be back with you this morning in this new year and to meditate with you. It's a wonderful meditation. I hope you know that the meditation is the most important thing that we do when we come here. More important than what I say is that lifting up of our consciousness, that direct experience of divine presence. Emerson observed that. Our good friend Ralph, he said he liked the silence best of all in a service because he was a mystic and he knew that when we come together we can collectively commune in the silence with that one that is beyond words and thoughts. At the beginning of every new year, of course, I have a time of contemplating the life of Paramahansa Yogananda because we celebrate his birthday. And then in the short time frame in March, we celebrate the time of his Mahasamadhi, his departure, conscious departure from the physical body. So those two anniversaries, his birth and the anniversary of his passing, occur right in that time, in the beginning of a new year. So one of the things that I do is I think about the gifts of his life. You know, what he gave to me, what he gave to the world, what inspires me about his life. And of course, I can say in some way that I have met him because I met his student, who is my teacher. And I know what he taught his student. I know how that light was passed on. So today and in the weeks ahead, I want to be sharing with you a little bit about the gifts of his life, the gifts of the life of what we would call a great soul. You know, we're all great souls. There's really no difference among us with the divine self that we are. But in some, it shines more brightly that we can see. And our goal, of course, is for that inner light within us all to shine brightly in our lifetime. So I came up with 5 transforming lessons that I have learned from him. There are more than 5, but if you write a blog, you can't have more. So there are 5 for now. And the first is to be intentional. And I think as we enter this new year, there really couldn't be better advice for any of us than to live intentionally, to live with higher purpose. And that's, of course, what he did when you think about what powered this life when he was 27 years old, getting the inspiration to come from India to America where he had never been, didn't speak English well. 27. Got on a ship, took him 2 months to get here, crossing the oceans. And then when he came, as his guru Sri Yukteswar told him, all doors will open for you. And of course, it wasn't always easy for him. But the reality of it was that the doors did open. And thousands of people came to hear him, and thousands of lives were transformed through his message, through his glance, through his consciousness. But I would like to offer that actually the door was open before he came. And I don't mean that just in sense of prophecy. I mean that the door of his own consciousness was opened. he made a decision early on what his life would be about. And then he went about living in accordance with that insight. That his life would be a life of living in God-conscious awareness, living in the remembrance of that higher reality, and that he would live his life in such a way that he could cooperate with the infinite. That's what we call a dharmic life. Dharma is, we think of it as purpose or duty, or sometimes it's translated as the way of righteousness. Righteousness is a word we don't like so much. You know, it sounds like righteous. Or it could be good, like righteous. But righteousness in this sense means in accordance with the way that things are. It means in harmony with spiritual law and principle. It means that there's a way that we can live in which we can cooperate with the infinite. And when we discover that, then the doors open in our life. And that's the principle that he demonstrated with his life. But that principle wasn't just for him. That's why he came to teach it, because that principle is for all of us. To wake up to the truth of our life, that we are living in God, we're living in spirit, whatever you want to call it, that's our life. And we're here to learn how to express that divine life fully and how to cooperate with the infinite. We're here to wake up and to live that divine life every day. I had some words about waking up this morning. You know, have you noticed? It's kind of a time when nature's waking up now, right? Hear the birds in the morning. Do you see things coming into bloom? It's a beautiful time. There's a poem from The Moon Reminded Me. It's called The Mother's Compassion. So think about this. Think about, Divine Mother as that divine presence that surrounds us and indwells us and is always encouraging us to wake up. The Mother's Compassion. Dawn slid silently through the trees this morning, gently waking sparrows in their nests. As she pulled back the blanket of fog, she whispered, "Joy is near. Wake up, wake up." It's like that in our life, isn't it? As Divine Mother pulls back the blanket of fog, of confusion, says to us, wake up, wake up. Live your divine life. Don't put it off anymore. That's what all the great saints and sages have said, right? Wake up, wake up. Live your divine life. Don't put it off anymore. As I was contemplating this intentional living, this awakened living that is there for us. You have had that wake-up call, or you wouldn't be here this morning. So you're outed about that. You've already had the wake-up call. So how is it with us? We get a wake-up call. I think we get several, don't we? but we have let us say, a proclivity for the snooze alarm. Or, a tendency to drift. I'll just do this. I know what my soul call is, but I'll just do this. So when I was thinking about this call to awaken, I have this big black Bible. It's impressive, isn't it? It has gold, everything. I was waiting for Amarnath to come. He went to get some gas, and I went and stood outside, and I was holding my Bible. And I was standing on the curb. And this woman walked by, and I thought, I'm scaring her. She kind of quickened her pace. The message in here is the same message. Wake up. So I thought of this verse that I really love. It's in Romans. And it's right after there's some explanation really about Dharma, about living in accordance with spiritual law, natural law, ethical law, the commandments. And then it says, and you know what? It all boils down to love. That's one of my 5 lessons from Yogananda. It all boils down to love. So you may as well make that your aim. So anyway, here it says that, okay, it all boils down to love. Love is the fulfilling of the law. Law is dharma. Love is the fulfilling of the way that we're supposed to live. And then it says, and that, knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. The night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness and let us put on the armor of light. Aren't those beautiful verses? Those are in Romans chapter 13, 11 and 12. So I want to think about what it is to cast off the works of ignorance. Translated a little differently. Cast off the works of ignorance and put on the armor of light. To go into the world with light, taking our light, carrying it with us, letting it shine. When we get the call to awaken, we get some wake-up call in our life, right? And as I said, I think we probably get several. I know I've had several in my life. Sometimes they come as a radiant joy, a sweetness. Sometimes they come as sorrow, our loss. And we say to ourselves, I'm going to live a different way. I am really going to pay more attention. What am I going to pay attention to? I'm going to pay more attention to what is really important, to what really matters, to what I know is true, to what I know is worthy of me. I watched Dave Letterman's first new show. I was the only one watching Dave Letterman's first new show. And he interviewed Barack Obama. And it was a lovely interview. And there was one moment in there that I felt was so poignant. It's towards the end. And they had been talking about many things, life and politics and family. And somehow, I don't know if it came up around the anniversary, which was celebrated during the time of Obama's presidency, the anniversary of the march in Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, right? And David Letterman said, 1965, he said, "Where was I when John Lewis and those others were walking across that bridge? Where was I?" It was such a beautiful and kind of naked question to ask like that. Where was I? And he said, like a confession, I know where I was. He said, a bunch of my college friends and I had discovered that if we went to the Bahamas, there was no limit on drinking age. And so during that time, we traveled to the Bahamas and stayed drunk for a week. So he said, where was I? And, it made me think, of course, the older you get, the more you can ask that question. And we do ask that question, don't we? Where was I? Meaning, what was I thinking? How did I sleepwalk through that? Where was I at that juncture in my life? So that's that experience of seeing that sometimes we're awake, sometimes we're asleep. So we want to not so much look back, although I think it's useful to ask, where was I, and to observe. I think it's more useful to say, where am I? Not where is God, where am I? And what is it that keeps us from falling asleep? When we've had the call to awaken, we genuinely want to be awake and to stay awake. How do we do that? The gift, I think, that Yogananda gave us about that was this gift of living with intention. Having a clearly identified higher purpose for our life. That's what it is to live dharmically. Now, as my teacher told me, a lot of people live with purpose. And that's a good thing. I mean, if it's a good purpose, it's a good thing. Some people have a purpose that is not good, but you can live with purpose. You want to have a good job, you want to take care of your family. You're living with a purpose. It's useful. You You want to finish college, have an education, serve others, be a doctor, be a nurse. That's a purpose. But this business of staying awake has to do with higher purpose. Not just purpose, but higher purpose. Meaning that we decide that our life is dedicated to living with higher purpose. And we declare that, just like Yogananda did. We declare it. And in so doing, we become aware that we need help. This is not something that happens at the level of ego. And it's not really a to-do. It's an offering. We make our life an offering. And it's helpful if we can find a way to articulate it. Maybe we say, I am love. We say something totally outrageous. We know that we're, speaking for myself, selfish, small-minded, cranky. And we say, I am love. I am peace. Because that's the truth of our higher nature. And that's what it is to live with intention. To step into that higher commitment to be what we are in harmony with the infinite. Lord, I am your instrument of peace. And then we ask for guidance. We ask for help every day to live as love, to live as peace. And we get out of, what the Bible talked about as the works of darkness. We get out of, mucking around in things that have nothing to do with love, that have nothing to do with peace. And that doesn't mean that we're not strong, that we don't stand up for truth, that we don't stand up for justice, but we don't spend time, with the low-level kind of gossip and complaining. Because then we just contribute that to the collective. So, this year, in this new year, let's think of that 27-year-old who had a prayer. Let me be your instrument of awakening. Got on a boat, sailed across the seas. Can we decide to be awake? Yes. I think we can. So why not? I wrote in my little inspiration this week, when you really decide, like you're going to get up at 4 a.m., you just decide. You set the alarm. Maybe you set 2 alarms if you're like me, or 3, one across the room. But if you notice, when you really decide, you'll wake up before the alarm goes off. Why is that? Because you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're that consciousness which has declared. You know how to wake up. We all know that. So it's a beautiful life, a life of love, a life of joy. And we have this opportunity to be awake in it. And that is the message of all the sages of all times. Arise, awake, live your divine life now. Om Shanti.